Just give it a few ticks.
Gotta get that. All right. Just let me know when.
Okay. We are ready.
We're ready. Woo-hoo, how exciting. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else in between. How is everyone tonight? Okay, I would like to call the Human Services Commission to order. It's now 6 o'clock, and I would like a pledge of allegiance. And I think we're going to make David Juni ask Mr. David Juni to do it this evening, or at least lead us off.
I would be happy to.
Thank you.
Put your hand over your heart.
I always forget the heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for some.
Cool. Thank you, David. And Dee, may I have a roll call, please?
Absolutely, Chair. Commissioner Byers,
Present.
Commissioner Darvish,
present.
Commissioner Freiberg,
Here.
Commissioner Meltzer,
Here.
Commissioner Shandrick,
Here.
Vice Chair Palmieri,
Here.
and Chair Davis.
Here.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Thank you very much. And the chair would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda for this evening's meeting. If I may have a motion in a second. Adam moves. Is there a second?
Second.
And Barbara seconds. Dee, I would like a roll call again, please, on both.
Absolutely. Commissioner Byers,
Yes.
Commissioner Darvish,
Aye.
Commissioner Freiberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Meltzer,
Yes.
Commissioner Shandrick,
Yes.
Vice Chair Palmieri,
Yes.
and Chair Davis.
Aye. Thank you. And then moving along, approval of the minutes from the last meeting. If there are no comments or concerns, does Barbara?
I have a
Mr.
little
Meltzer, pardon
comment,
me.
just a little comment. On the loss to suicide in the LGBTQ community. It says here that Barbara Meltzer had mixed feelings about them, the item. They weren't mixed. As far as I remember, they were not mixed.
Okay. Commissioner Freiberg?
I just wanted to add in on what I said about sending information to the property managers, that it's an on-site property manager's office, not just some random office that's not in the building.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else. I'd like to have a motion to accept the minutes as amended, and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and Dee, may I have a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Commissioner Byers,
Aye.
Commissioner Darvish,
Aye.
Commissioner Freiberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Meltzer,
Yes.
Commissioner Shandrick,
Abstain.
and Vice Chair Palmieri,
Yes.
and Chair Davis.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Moving along, we have the item next is public comment. Do I have any? Dee? I have a hand raised, but
Yes,
is this,
yes,
okay.
that
So
is our public
can we
comment.
go ahead and do that then? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Dean.
I was
And
waiting to throw that hand up there. Good evening, I'm Dean Ambrosini. I am the project lead with the West Hollywood Project for the Institute for Public Strategies. We are a prevention provider with the County of Los Angeles Substance Abuse Prevention and Control. And our project works to mitigate substance use problems, as many of you know, in the city, specifically in the LGBT community. This Wednesday, actually a week from tomorrow, I should say, I will be hosting a webinar on integrating harm reduction into prevention, basically into our prevention efforts. And we'll be discussing the stigma around harm reduction, working to mitigate that stigma, and discussing the promising advances that have come about in harm reduction in the last, specifically the last 4 to 5 years. My co-presenter will be Roger Sediles from APLA. They run programs aimed at reducing meth use. And this is a very important webinar. I think it's going to be very informative. There's a great deal of data out there to support increased public funding for harm reduction programs. And I am hoping that you all can attend. You can register. Vice Chair Palmieri has the registration link that he can pass along. You can also go to our website, which is publicstrategies.org, and click on the tab for the latest. And there's a registration link in there. It is free, and it will be next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And if you're not able to make it, it will also be carried on our YouTube channel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dia, do we have anyone else?
I am scrolling and there are no other hands raised.
All right, thank you. So that we'll be moving along into unfinished business. And item A is the needs assessment focusing on community members of color. And I just was told to pass this to Francisco. So Mr. Francisco, you're in charge.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair Davis. Good evening, Commissioners. In October of 2020, the City Council directed staff to analyze the social services needs of people of color in West Hollywood. As a result of that directive, staff studied service utilization by people of color during the 2020 contract year and presented findings to the Commission in February. In addition to that report, staff brought a 10-year retrospective analysis of service utilization by non-white community members to the Commission in August. During the August presentation, staff mentioned that quantitative data alone could not address the Council's directive, and that additional research and analysis would be needed to understand current gaps in services and disparities in outcomes for community members of color. For this reason, during the August meeting, staff introduced the city's plan to conduct a needs assessment focused on people of color. The city released an RFQ for the needs assessment in mid-August, and the City Council awarded a contract for the assessment on November 3rd. Maroon Society, a local research firm with extensive experience providing needs assessment and program evaluation services to local government agencies, is a consultant the city selected to conduct the needs assessment. The Commission is familiar with Maroon Society as they have worked with the city on the HIV Zero Initiative evaluation program for a number of years. Staff from Maroon Society are here today to discuss the assessment scope of work and timeline. I'll now hand off the presentation to Erin Celios, Director of Research and Strategy at Maroon Society, and his team, who will tell us more about this project.
Thank you, Francisco. I am going to start sharing my screen. Let's see. Okay, perfect. Well, good evening, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Dr. Erin Sullivan. I'm Director of Research and Strategy for Maroon Society. We have been collaborating with the City of West Hollywood for the past 5 years on the evaluation of the HIV Zero Initiative. And on behalf of the entire Maroon Society team, I'd just like to express how honored we are to collaborate with the city once again on this really important study. The team includes Dr. Kahari Brown, who's here this evening, Patricia Ortega, and Brandon Harrison. So with that, I will get right into our approach to the needs assessment. So over the past few years, the City of West Hollywood and the greater community at large in the United States have had growing awareness about the persistent racial disparities in most of the core quality of life indicators. Just in general, these quality of life indicators typically include income, employment, life expectancy, which is often attributed to access to health, education, housing, and safety. Now, with this needs assessment, what's behind it is that the City of West Hollywood aims to provide all community members support to improve their quality of life. To that end, West Hollywood hasn't contracted with us to conduct a needs assessment with two broad goals. One is to determine how community members of color utilize social services and identify what new services may be offered to better meet their needs, as well as any gaps that may exist. We're going to explore four main questions in this needs assessment. One, what eligibility variation exists? And that includes what variation for social service eligibility exists by race and ethnicity in West Hollywood. Meaning, are there certain social services that are currently available that people of color are more or less eligible for? So really understanding that eligibility variation can help the city better understand what needs are being really well met and what needs may be better served with new social services. The second question we're going to look at is services and utilization. And so that's really just basically what Francisco and his team has looked at. Behind the study was a 10-year look at social services utilization. And so we want to ground this study in that data, in that analysis that's already been done, but we want to add to that. And so we want to start by looking specifically at social service providers who have high and low utilization by community members of color and identify if there's anything that can be learned by looking at those two groups of service providers. The third thing we want to look at is the barriers and facilitators to access and use. And that's just like what it sounds like. What are the barriers to accessing social services for community members of color? And what are some of the conditions that help community members of color access services more easily? And then finally, we want to understand, are there social services that are wanted and needed that potentially could be generated? As you probably already know, that behind this study is the desire to modify or create an RFP that the city can develop so that if there's a need for new services, they can be generated and that other service providers can bid on that process to create such social services to fill those gaps. So the overarching question is, how can West Hollywood increase access to social services? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Brown, who will talk about the first phase of the approach.
Hello. Okay, as Dr. Celios stated, well, Dr. Celios stated, we're interested in looking at this question of needs assessment by race, more specifically looking at race disparities and social service utilization. So one of our initial tasks in this needs assessment is to examine the eligibility standards of each West Hollywood service provider. And to do this, we'll use existing census data and regional surveys like the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority and the West Hollywood Community Surveys to estimate the proportion of each race group that is eligible for the services that West Hollywood service providers provide based upon age, disability, income, and house status, et cetera. So for example, based upon the data that you've already collected, non-Hispanic whites are roughly a quarter of the homeless population of West Hollywood, but 40% of those that use homelessness services, indicating that they are overrepresented among this group. In contrast, non-whites are roughly 3/4 of the homeless population in West Hollywood, but 60% of those receiving services, suggesting that they are underrepresented. So the extent to which we observe these types of race disparities, we'll collect social service interviews, staff surveys, and focus group data to identify barriers. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. We'll continue on. So the barriers and facilitators that Dr. Brown alluded to or mentioned include looking at social service providers. And so I had mentioned earlier that we want to look at service providers that are on the ends, those who have really high utilization rates and those who have lower utilization rates. And we want to speak with them, conduct interviews, really to look at best practices. What are the ones that are having higher utilization doing to increase awareness about service? As you can imagine, people can only utilize services if they have awareness that those services exist. What are they doing to enroll clients, and what are they doing to provide those services? And we believe that by conducting some in-depth interviews with current service providers, we can better understand what are some of the best practices and areas for improvement that can be shared with all of the providers in the city. In addition to the barriers of facilitators, we want to look at the providers, the staff of the providers of social services. And we want to conduct surveys among them to understand what their thoughts are about best practices, as well as looking at the demographic profile of staff to determine the extent to which race matching may or may not have any impact on social services utilization, meaning that if the staff at a particular organization is more diverse, does that make people of color feel more comfortable utilizing those services? And as a result, is the utilization higher? Anecdotally, we know that people have talked about the possibility of the center, the center having a more diverse staff, and as a result, seeing more utilization among people of color for some of the legal services versus a prior provider whose staff may have been less diverse. And now I'm going to turn it over to Patricia Ortega to talk about the focus groups.
Hi. As you recall, Dr. Celios mentioned that one of the main issues we're trying to address here is what are the barriers and facilitators to accessing social services. So when we talk, so we can talk about people that are already utilizing services and we could get some information from them, but we want to know why people of color who are aware of services are not using them. So to explore the why people who are aware of the services and eligible are not using the services, we're going to conduct focus groups for community members in both English and Spanish. Pensamos que es importante hacer los grupos de enfoque en español porque creemos que hay mucha gente que solo habla español en la ciudad. For those who did not understand me, what I just said was that I believe doing the focus group in Spanish is important since there's a large population, a large number of people that may only speak Spanish in the community. In terms of the content of the focus groups, we're going to look at the perceptions of social services in the community. That is of current services, possible new services, and barriers and facilitators to use of those services. So let me go back. So in this project, we're doing both qualitative and quantitative analysis. So the qualitative analysis would be the focus groups. And the focus group aims, like I said before, in understanding the wants and needs and barriers in the community by doing the focus groups. But we're also having, we're gonna do also a qualitative analysis. And in the qualitative analysis, we're gonna conduct surveys. And that survey is called the Eligibility Survey. So the goal of the Eligibility Survey is to measure the extent in which the community members are eligible and interested in the services. So what typically makes somebody in the community eligible for services is if they live, they own property, or they attend school, or they have spent a significant amount of time homeless in the city of West Hollywood. So we're focusing on two groups in the survey in particular. We're focusing on people who work but don't live in West Hollywood. And then we're also focusing on people who are community members who may not be working, like seniors and people with disabilities, who may qualify for services, but who are unaware that they in terms of the approach we're going to use to gather, to conduct the surveys, we're going to use in-person outreach methods. So we're going to have surveyors. We're going to also conduct a survey that is going to be available online in the City of West Hollywood's website. And we're also going to have a QR code posted in high visibility areas around the city. So those are some of the approaches that we're going to do to collect the surveys. And I'm going to pass it right back to Erin.
Thank you. So I'll talk a little bit about the schedule. As you can see from this slide, we have a very tight timeline to conduct the various tasks that we feel will allow us to be successful in fulfilling this needs assessment. So we are going to start with the demographic profile, qualification criteria, and utilization during November and December. We're going to start the interviews during the same period of time. The focus groups will be conducted in possibly late December, but definitely in January. And then we will start the eligibility survey in January and February. And we are aiming to get collaboration from a variety of stakeholders within the city to conduct that eligibility survey. And we will then have the final draft either late March, early April. But we know that there's timing issues for the city to publish the RFP. And so we need to have at least the results available for that statement of work to be developed. And with that, I think I'll just open it up for discussion and questions.
May I have my screen back? No, thank you. All right, so yeah, thank you. It's as Dr. Celios, I'm sooner or later going to say it correctly, and I'm very sorry that I mispronounced it. But as he said, we will open it up to questions. And I saw two hands. I'll start with Vice Chair Paul Mary.
Hi, Doctor. It's great to see you as always. I want to understand this completely and crystal clearly. What does n equal 6? What does n equal 150? I need to have this from my notes.
Oh, sure. So that's just scientific notation in survey research. It stands for the population size. Okay. And so that means that for n equals 6, we're going to conduct 6 interviews, 3 of high utilization providers, 3 of lower utilization providers, and same thing for focus groups. And with the focus groups, we'll have a similar split. We didn't know how much detail to provide, but we're going to have half the groups will be among community members of color who are aware of the social services but are not utilizing them. So we can really understand, well, why is it that you're not utilizing it if you're aware of it and you're eligible? And then the other 3 will be among community members of color who are not aware and not utilizing the services. So with these groups, I'm sure everyone on this committee knows what focus groups are, or commission knows, but for anyone that's watching at home, focus groups are really a great way to explore the hows and the whys that a quantitative instrument like a survey will not allow us. We can understand, we can go deeper as to what are the motivators and what are the barriers to use. And so that's why we believe that that's one of the best tools that we can get at to explore the qualitative measures. And then, as Patricia mentioned, we're going to then go quantitative with the survey. So we'll get a sense of these are the gaps, or these are the services that we really want from the focus groups, and then we'll be able to test it to a broader audience. And what wasn't mentioned in my portion of the presentation is that the entire study will be in English and Spanish. Both the focus groups will be in English and Spanish, and then the survey will also be available in both languages. And we believe that those are the primary languages spoken by people of color in West Hollywood.
So just to be clear, the survey will need, you have N150, this survey will be 150 folks?
Yes, we anticipate 150 at a minimum. What we're going to do is survey from a specific number of businesses so that we can include employees. We believe that that's where probably the greatest opportunity is to identify community members of color who are not utilizing services. And for those who are not employed, we're going to establish partnerships and outreach to like senior centers, library, and different community centers so that we can tap into people who are still community members but are not working and may not be aware of the fact that there are social services and that they qualify to receive them. So the study is both gathering information, but in our interactions with the public, we will also be educating them about the availability of services.
Great, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Darvish, did you still have a question?
Yes, just really great job in presenting. And I'm more clear now than the first time. So kind of new to me, and thank you. Really, a lot of great details there. So the first question I have is on criteria. I struggled myself last year more so. I had more time on my hand to decide who I am. People ask me, Adam, do you feel like a minority? Are you from people of color? And I did a lot of research because I never thought about it. I look white. I am Iranian. I was being raised in Iran. The taxi drivers asked me where I was from. So I always felt like I was from a planet that didn't belong, here. So at home, I was being questioned. Here I'm being questioned, but I do look Caucasian. So so the criteria that you use, I guess it goes by minorities that are multiracial or BIPAC, or so that's my first question. What is the criteria? I don't think like a lot of Iranians in this community need any help because a lot of them are, have the education, have the job, and so do other races. I don't mean to single out some. And then when I look at majority in West Hollywood, I want to say that they're Hispanic, I would think, in West Hollywood. So are we going to group different minority groups, people of color, to see which group needs more attention? And how do we decide on that criteria to begin with, right? How are they people of color? And then I guess we're leaving out the Caucasian group, although in my mind, I think there are some Caucasian groups that need the help. Maybe they don't know to access the social services. So I don't know why. I'm sure there's a reason we're focusing on people of color that we've seen. I think Kari mentioned that amongst the homeless group, the people of color are accessing the services less. I think that's what I understood. So that validates there's a gap there. And I think a lot of it goes back to education. Maybe they don't have the technology to know the services is available. So again, first, how do we decide who's people of color? And then second, why did we leave Caucasians out if there are people in that group that are not accessing, and how would decide that? I like one thing I think Patricia mentioned in your study that I liked is to identify a service that may be missing. I think I mentioned that last time, people from different cultures. And again, amongst those people of color, there's so many cultures that we can't just group them together for their needs. One I used was using a psychiatrist in the country that I came from. You'll be embarrassed to tell someone, I'm going to see a psychiatrist. They think that you're just out to the deep end, that you're, and here it's just a routine. All of us are open to doing that. And then the other one is HIV positive or any kind of disease. Not a lot of cultures, they don't like to even tell the doctors that. They're ashamed or afraid. So again, it would be nice to kind of distinguish those things and provide some help to those groups that, hey, it's okay to go and seek for help. And here's, the social services can help you. So those are my highlights. But again, I like what Patricia said, identify what's missing for that group and see if we can provide it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you for the comments and the questions. Would you like me to address some of them? Okay. And then also some of the other members of the team jump in. I think I'll just broadly sort of summarize what I heard you saying. You would like to know what is the criteria for someone to qualify as a person of color? What is and so I guess for that, we can just go by what the census uses typically. And there are a few groups, it's Native American, African American, Hispanic or Latino in origins typically included, and Asian Pacific Islander, Armenians, and people of Iranian descent over 100 years ago petitioned to be categorized as white. And so they're currently not considered people of color according to the census. However, the city of West Hollywood may have a varying definition of that we are not in a position to define, but I'm just giving you what what the standard is for what qualifies as a person of color. And then for criteria for qualifying for services, as Dr. Brown had mentioned, that's one of the first things we want to look at. We know that most people qualify for services in the city of West Hollywood by virtue of living, working, attending school, owning property, or being homeless in the city for a significant amount of time. We don't believe that there are any racial criteria that would prevent someone or make someone eligible for any of these services. But we're going to look at other factors that may be barriers. And I see David Ginny popped up. I don't know if you wanted to jump in.
No, I did. Well, I just kind of wanted to remind folks that this was based on direction from council. And I was pulled up the original council item that we brought to the commission last year. And it is specific to the demographics of the city, and then the demographics of the folks who are accessing services, and the disparity within the certain, service categories. It is mentioned specifically in the council item, people of color being our Black, Indigenous, and Latinx community. So it really is targeted on looking at people of color. It's not to negate the ongoing need to get information about our services to everyone, but this is specifically focusing on community members of color that are mentioned in that report. As I said, Black, Indigenous, and Latino, also, Asian and Pacific Islander. What we saw, what kind of precipitated this, is when we did the community study and when we got the latest census data, is that we saw that there has been a slight decrease in, now this is residents of West Hollywood, a slight decrease in residents who identify as white, slight increase in residents who identify as Latinx, and slight increase as people who identify as Black. We did also see that with that, we have now more community members who identify their primary language as Spanish, that as opposed to, it used to be the highest rate of folks who were racial minorities were our Russian-speaking community members. So there's been a real kind of focus from council to address the services that those community members need, and what do we need to provide that we haven't been up to this point.
Right. And I'd like to add on to what Mr. Jenny just said, which is it doesn't leave out community members who are Caucasian or white, or in our study, we're going to be identifying gaps. And if there are gaps, we'll be able to say there are gaps for people who are Caucasian as well. It's, we're looking at all the variables, and I don't know if Dr. Brown wants to jump in.
I just wanted to add just slightly to what you said, Dr. Celios, and I really appreciate your question, Adam. One of the approaches that we will take is, and particularly in conducting the focus groups and the interviews, the in-depth interviews, is that we will allow the individuals we interview to identify themselves racially or ethnically. So we're not going to make any assumptions about how anyone identifies. Is however the person identifies, that's how we report them in the study. So the extent to which there are disparities, but the extent to which we try to explain these disparities is based upon how the individuals in the study racially or ethnically identify.
And you had asked one other question, and that is why the focus? And I believe that Mr. Jenny really addressed that well. It was a council item. But in addition, as you know, the city of West Hollywood always strives for more. I think that we've seen that in the HIV Zero initiative. The city was the first to have an initiative of this kind within the county, and then the county followed suit. We have seen a growing body of government agencies that want to push for equity, not equality. And so I just see this as being part of a longstanding tradition of the city of West Hollywood to advocate for things that people should be advocating for. I mean, it was founded upon advocating for the rights of the LGBT community in a time when having HIV and AIDS was such a stigmatized and people were discriminated at such an extent that it became a safe haven. And so this is really, in my opinion, just the city identifying that there is an unmet need and taking a leadership position again. So that's the why, I think.
Thank you so much. I feel better that you look at the census report and what's approved, kind of categorized as people of color. And then I think Dr. Brown mentioned asking them to make sure that we don't just assume that because of their look or something, they're people of color. So I'm glad, and it's a great initiative. I'm sure, again, council has put this forward due to maybe the data that I'm sure they've looked at, as David mentioned. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just 1 second. Thank you, Mr. Juni, for putting the historical perspective around it, because sometimes some of the commissioners haven't been here long enough to remember that this went through a certain time ago. So it's always nice to get the historical part. Thank you. And Commissioner Meltzer, I can see your hand.
Yes, I just want to say thank you for that presentation. I am really excited about this, and I am eager to help and be involved in any way that I can. So thank you.
Thank you. We are equally excited and look forward to receiving any help that you may be able to offer.
Likewise.
Any other commissioners' comments or questions? Oh, Chelsea, Commissioner Byers. I don't know what that.
Thank you, Chair Davis. Thank you so much for the presentation. I also found it really interesting. I was excited in the report when I read that this public outreach program would creatively and effectively notify community members about the needs, and was curious to hear more and have learned more in some of the responses tonight, but wanted to maybe just hear a little bit more. I know it's a thing that is a part of our conversations constantly, is how are we doing outreach? Are we reaching people? In what ways can we be more creative and thoughtful about that? So I'm specifically excited that this is a study meant to reach community members who may be a part of that harder to reach community. And I'm just eager to hopefully learn some ways that we can better reach people in general through this study, like the QR codes. I think people are more used to seeing those type of things. And I think I heard you say that there would be people actually surveying out in the community, sort of being available as a one-on-one interview. Is that right? Okay, I'm seeing head nods. That's awesome. And then I just wanted to sort of note, on one hand, while the effects of systemic racism are really well documented and solutions have been long time advocated for, what I appreciate about this opportunity is how it is hyper locating these solutions within the framework we have here as a city to really meet that need. I see a really aggressive timeline here. I'm always troubled by the idea of conducting more research that will delay our ability to reach solutions, but I think this is a first. What I'm hearing is that this is a really new opportunity to locate this within the context of West Hollywood and what we can do. And I just want to put a cherry on top with that, what you said, Mr. Celios, that was the city always strives for more. And I think this is like the perfect framing to think about this in, that we're not really thinking about the pie in one specific way, but how can we continue to increase that and put the needs of people in our community first. So I appreciate this presentation. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Shandrick.
Yes, hi, a very interesting report, and look forward to more information. I had a question about kind of the survey of the makeup of employees for our social service partners. Although we strive that they serve the broadest population, sometimes the focus of the organization, the core focus is around a specific religion or around a sexual orientation, or maybe the organization was founded to help prevent and treat a specific disease. So those organizations possibly because of their kind of core mission may not look as diverse as a community or the county. So I just wanted to hear thoughts how that could be addressed or handled or treated.
Sure. Well, I'll say this. I know in the work that we do, it's often we look at intersectional identities. And so someone can be trans and a person of color. Someone can be a gay man and a person of color, or white. And so we don't know at this point, since we're just getting started, the extent to which the composition of the staff providing these services reflects the community members' racial identities. And we don't know if it matters at all. We're just simply saying it's something that we may look at as something to consider. It may be that it's really well reflected that the people served and the people doing the service match really well. It may be that they don't match well and the utilization is so high. It's just something that could be valuable, but it could mean nothing at all. And so we're very mindful of the fact that the city of West Hollywood has service providers that have been providing services for decades. And we, in no way, shape, or form, intend to compromise those relationships. We've been working with many of those providers over the past 5 years. We really want to understand what they're doing well. There are providers that have higher utilization, and we believe in best practices being able to inform other providers. And that's really what we see. I don't know if anyone else wants to add on or if there's a follow-up.
Anything else, Patrick, did that suit you? I actually have a little follow-up that has to do with the organizations. You have a number 6 for the social service providers. You said 3 highly utilized and 3 not as well utilized. And then I was curious as who's going to answer that particular survey, or who's going to represent the organization as opposed to the employee? Are you going to talk to the directors of the organizations or their board, or exactly how does that work?
Well, we're going to collaborate with the social services team to identify those individuals. But my thought, or the thought that we have internally, at least with Maroon Society, is that it would be helpful to speak to the program administrator. And that typically is the person that's submitting the reports to the city on a quarterly basis. They're the ones that often have the most knowledge about the services that are being provided and the staff.
That was the answer to my question. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much for your presentation. Good luck. The timeline is very short, so I wish you appropriate luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yep, take care.
Good night, all. And then I've lost my place. Here we are. And now we're going to B, which is the part of old business, which is an update on the Pickup Nightlife Entertainment trolley program, which we are ardent supporters of. So we would like to hear from that. I believe Francisco can take that away as well.
And Francisco, before you start, D informed me that the commission never approved the consent calendar. So we need to step back and do that.
I thought that when we approved the actual agenda for this evening, that we actually approved the consent calendar at the same time.
And was that the understanding of the body? Okay, we just needed to confirm it because it hadn't been pulled out separately.
Okay, is there something that we need to do in the future? Can we look at that if it's necessary? My understanding is that as long as the approval of the agenda for the evening was approved, that also approved the consent calendar. Yeah.
And Alyssa, who's with us, do you want to weigh in at all? Do we need to do that separately? The assistant city clerk is in the room.
Elisa, if you Elisa, if you can just provide clarification also for myself on this item. Thank you.
It would seem that maybe Alyssa stepped away from her computer.
Okay. So we can go on and then have her come back and give some direction.
All right. So then, Francisco, you may take it away again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Davis and commissioners. So let me go ahead and share my screen. 1 second. Alrighty, so good evening, everybody. So today, Doug, Wynn, and I are here to provide an update on the pickup. So every year, we usually bring an update that provides a recap of the prior fiscal year's service. The report usually focuses on ridership and cost information. However, this year, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the pickup did not operate in fiscal year 21. So this update is really more of more just information on how we relaunched the service earlier this or last month. And so for those who don't know, the pickup is the city's free nightlife entertainment trolley service that was launched in 2013. The service runs along Santa Monica Boulevard between La Brea and Robertson on Fridays and Saturdays between 8 p.m. and 3 in the morning, Sundays from 2 to 10 p.m., and on 8 popular nightlife holidays, which include New Year's Eve, Halloween, St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo, and a few others. The goals of the service are to provide a free and fun transit option in one of the city's busiest nightlife districts, to help improve public safety by providing an alternative to driving for those who drink, and to help reduce traffic congestion. And there's an image of one of our new trolleys. So when we relaunch in October, we relaunch with brand new vehicles that feature brand new artwork. So there's, if you remember the pickup before COVID, the artwork on the vehicles was significantly different. So COVID obviously impacted the service. Due to the pandemic, we did pause the service in March of 2020. Initially, we expected the pause would last a few months. However, obviously it was much longer. So due to the extended pause, our operator, American GTS, was forced to lay off drivers, pause maintenance on vehicles, suspend their insurance, let their registration lapse with CARB, with the California Air Resources Board, and other regulatory agencies. And we did have to pause work on the rebrand project that we were working on. We eventually did complete work on that project, and the artwork I just showed you is of the new artwork. We did initiate plans to resume the service in the summer of 2020. However, because of the rising COVID cases, those plans were scrapped. We again started plans to relaunch the service in the summer of 2021 with the goal of starting on Labor Day. However, due to the delays in getting safety ambassadors for the pickup, these are the block by block ambassadors who you see along the boulevard. They have always since the program launched in 2013, they've been on the service helping keep the vehicle safe. So due to delays in getting them back on the service when we relaunched, and delays in getting the new trolleys delivered, we did have to delay the relaunch by about a month. So we eventually did resume the service on October 8th. To make this date, we had to work with American GTS to hire drivers for the pickup. American GTS, our operator, had to reactivate their insurance and re-register vehicles with regulatory agencies. We went to council to get a contract with block by block executed to help get those ambassadors back in the vehicles to help enforce public health directives. And we worked with our branding consultants to finish the work on the rebrand. And we got new vehicle wraps installed on the vehicles. That said, I'm handing this presentation over to Doug, who will tell us more about public health's protocols for the service, as well as information about our revised schedule for the service. And take it away, Doug.
Thank you, Francisco. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the city of West Hollywood has made efforts to safeguard the community. Continuing along this, the pickup features modifications that align with directives from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. And these modifications include enforcing a passenger capacity of 50% to assist with social distancing, keeping windows open to improve ventilation, ensuring that masks are worn properly when boarding and are not removed, and having fully vaccinated trolley drivers. These modifications may temporarily result in a longer wait time for a ride when compared to the pre-COVID-19 service. Next slide. On the first night of the Pickups relaunch, between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m., demand for the service exceeded program staff's ability to enforce the social distancing public health recommendations. Passengers ignored driver and ambassador direction and crowded into packed trolleys. Staff modified the program's operating hours for the following night, with service running from 8 p.m. and now ending at 1 a.m. During this second night with the modified hours, there were no issues to report. The service will continue to temporarily operate between 8 p.m. and 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturdays. The service's schedule on Sundays will remain the same, with the service running between 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. Staff anticipates returning the service regular schedule later in the new year when capacity restrictions are lifted. Next slide. Staff will continue to monitor public health recommendations and the Pickups performance and will return to the Human Services Commission in August 2022 with a program update. Thank you. Staff is now available to answer your questions.
Commissioners, do I have any questions or comments? Commissioner Meltzer, your hand went up right away.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I do have a couple of questions. The block by block folks who were there to help enforce, I have been told so many times that they cannot enforce anything ever. So I'm just curious about that because I've called, I've done, you know, with masking and things like that when we're in the middle of the pandemic, and they have told me they can't enforce anything.
I can't speak for the work on the street, but on the trolleys, they are enforcing the mask mandate. It's specifically that's what it's in their contract. That's what they were hired to do. So if anyone boards the service and they
tell them that. Okay.
Yeah, and they're not wearing a mask, they'll offer one to the rider. If they refuse to wear it, then they'll ask that person to alight the vehicle. So again, I can't speak for the work outside on the boulevard, but on the trolleys, they are enforced.
It's different on the boulevard. It is different on the boulevard. It says here, now where was it? 6 feet between passengers if achievable. If not achievable, what happens?
So we do our best to keep that that distance between passengers. We are limiting the capacity to about 15 individuals per trolley.
And it's usually what, Francisco?
And so we block off every other row. So that creates some distance between passengers. Once that's reached, no additional passengers are allowed to board the vehicle.
Okay, and one more question, which I suspect you're not doing, because this came up several years ago with coupons. Or any of the bars or whatever giving out coupons?
So our perks program for the trolley is currently on pause. So we're not currently offering those perks. We do plan to resume the program later in the year once things are a little bit more normal. But as of now, that program is on pause.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioners, any other commissioner? Commissioner Darvish?
Yeah, thank you. I missed the first spot. Great job, Francisco and Doug. I wanted to have some clarification on the trolley. The great service that city has provided, and sorry that it had to end it during the pandemic. I guess not many people were going out anyways. And it's so, as Commissioner Meltzer had mentioned, I guess there's no enforcement, mask, or I was thinking about alcohol. Imagine this is not a party trolley that they have in San Francisco, because I would join in just for fun every Friday night and Saturday night. So I'd imagine no alcohol is allowed on board. And the other thing that I was wondering, where do these trolleys park? I guess they're designated. I believe that was discussed at City Council. They're designated spots for them, I guess, on Santa Monica at the Strip. And then where do they end? Do they have an endpoint? Obviously, they don't take people to their home address, but how far do they go? So just trying to visualize. I know they pick them up at the strips, and just to share my experience, I live just a block north of Santa Monica on Larrabee. Every Friday night and Saturday night after midnight, so it'd be like Saturday morning and Sunday morning at 2 a.m. There's a crowd that gathers by my house waiting for Uber and Lyft because they're using it to direct customers, bar customers, to a residential block. So I'm working with the city on that. So this should really help to eliminate that crowd from coming up to a residential street to be picked up. This is tough to stand on Santa Monica with all the traffic and all that's going on. So again, great service. I'm just trying to understand how do you manage the behavior on the trolley? Obviously, if they have alcohol they're not supposed to have in their hand, could we stop that? And then where do they take the customers to?
Yeah, so great questions. So we do have safety ambassadors on the trolley. We've had them since the service launched in 2013, and they help keep the trolleys safe. Food and drink are not allowed on the trolley, so if someone boards with any beverage or any food item, unfortunately they can't board. As for how the service operates, so it has 30 stops along Santa Monica Boulevard, about 15 in each direction, and the majority of these stops are shared with Metro, so anyone can get on and off at any one of those stops. And the trolleys are not housed in West Hollywood, so once service ends, they drive back to the operator's yard, which is located outside the city. Any question I missed?
I think that was it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Vice Chair Palmieri, please.
Hey, Francisco, great to see you. So I just want to go over a couple of things. One thing that annoyed me in the information was that an hour was cut off because folks would not comply, which makes me crazy insane. So what I need to ask you is, you're cutting it off at 1, which is, that's a great hour, but is 2 the more meaningful hour when folks are possibly more inebriated and we would not want them to drink? Is that the data that you have?
So at the 2 o'clock hour, the crowds begin to leave the bars and demand for the service exceeds our ability to enforce the public health recommendations. For that reason, we are ending the service early. I think once we're able to run the service at 100% capacity, and that is less of an issue, I think we will definitely look into running till 3 in the morning. But I think the demand at the 2 o'clock, between 2 and 3, is just so high that with the current restrictions, it's really difficult to kind of operate the service. We are letting people know that the service is ending early, so we are having ambassadors remind drivers as a board that the service is ending at 1. We have some notices in the vehicles letting people know that the service temporarily is ending at 1. On our website, the same notice exists. We have a trolley tracker tool that people can use to track the vehicles. So if anyone who uses that tool is also reminded the service ends at 1. So while I understand that the 3 o'clock hour is probably the hour that we see the most demand for a reason, unfortunately, with the restrictions running until that time currently, it is just not possible. However, for anyone who really doesn't, who wants to plan to use the service, they have ample notice and could make their way to a stop by 1 in the morning to get a ride back home. We are hoping to run till 3 in the near future, and we'll connect with public health to see what if their recommendations have changed. So we're continuously kind of just monitoring the directives, and as soon as it's safe for us to run at 100% capacity, we will do so, and we look to return to that our 3 o'clock end time.
So just so you're clear, that comment wasn't aimed at you or your department. It angers me that folks won't comply, so that the folks that are complying are now not going to have service for the extended service. And one other question, and I don't know if this has ever come up. I don't even know this for regular buses or not. Are the proof of vax required in the trolley since it has a roof on it?
It's not required, and it's not required on the regular buses either, on Metro buses. Okay. So we're currently not asking for proof.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner Palmieri. Any other commissioner with any other comment or question? Going once. Okay, I don't see any, so I believe that we will thank you for your presentation and good luck, and we hope it can go back to 3 as quickly as possible.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and then they, now I have to find my agenda. There we go. So the next item on the agenda is the new business, which is the election of officers for this body for the year starting actually in December of 2021 until November of 2022. And with that said, I will, I guess I'm giving it to you. Yes.
You're giving it to Alyssa, our
I'm
city.
giving it to Alyssa.
Assistant
I'm
City
giving it
Clerk.
to Alyssa, who's there. Hello, Alyssa.
Hi. Good evening, commissioners and staff and members of the public. I am Elisa Poblador. I'm the Assistant City Clerk, and I'm here to conduct your election for a new chair and vice chair. But firstly, did you have a point of clarification you wanted regarding the consent calendar?
Yes, according to my understanding, when we approve the agenda for the evening, we're approving the consent calendar as well. That they go hand in hand. That normally if a commissioner wishes to pull the consent, it needs to be pulled before that vote. So that was my understanding. And then there was a question. So is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, so when you approve the agenda, if you want to change any orders or bring something up, that's one motion. And then when you want to approve any consent items, I thought it was just a receive and file. So if you just want to be extra careful, you could do a motion to approve the consent calendar in a second, if you'd like to do that.
Okay, that makes sense. I won't be chair next meeting, but I'm sure there is a chair in here listening. So as soon to be chair listening and vice chair, so that I'm sure can be utilized. Actually, I find that more comfortable in a way because there were a couple of times I wanted to pull consent before, and then there was a vote going on, and then I was not. I was a day late and $1 short. So I think that makes better sense in some respects. And then you may go ahead and now do the election.
Wonderful. Okay, so I will entertain any nominations for the election of a new chair.
I would like to nominate vice chair to move on to the chair position, Commissioner Palmieri.
Okay.
Did you call up?
Any other nominations?
I have one.
Yes.
I'll do the same. I would like to nominate Vice Chair Palmieri to the chair position.
So we'll just start with just any names, and then afterwards you'll be able to do a roll call, and you'll do a roll call for each nominated individual. So we have Jimmy Palmieri as one nominee. Any others? Okay, so can I have a motion to close the nominations in a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Wonderful. Miss Recording Secretary, may we have a roll call, please, on Jimmy Palmieri for chair?
Absolutely. Commissioner Byers?
Aye.
Commissioner Darvish?
Aye.
Commissioner Freiberg?
Aye.
Commissioner Meltzer?
Yes.
Commissioner Shandrick?
Yes.
Vice Chair Palmieri?
Yes.
I'm so sorry, that's so unprofessional.
You can vote for yourself, of course.
Yes.
And Chair Davis?
Aye.
Okay.
So yay.
Motion passes, and Jimmy Palmieri is your new chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we will do the exact same again now for vice chair. I'm opening up nominations for vice chair, please. Yes, Jimmy Palmieri, please.
I'd like to nominate Barbara Meltzer as vice chair.
Wonderful. Any other nominations for vice chair? Mr. Darvish?
And I would like to do the same, although it's a tough choice. So many great team members here, but I would like to nominate Commissioner Meltzer for the vice chair.
Wonderful. Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, may I have a motion and a second, please, to close the nominations?
So moved.
I'd second it.
Wonderful. Ms. Recording Secretary, may we have a roll call, please, for Commissioner Meltzer as our next vice chair?
Absolutely. Commissioner Byers,
Aye.
Commissioner Darvish,
Aye.
Commissioner Freiberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Meltzer,
Aye.
Commissioner Shandrick,
Yes.
Vice Chair Palmieri,
Yes.
and Chair Davis.
Aye.
I don't know if I should be switching it now.
Yeah, it's not until December you'll
Okay,
change the
perfect.
titles. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So you have a new chair and vice chair. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you all very
Okay.
much. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
All right. So now then, if I can find myself, get to skipped from there is no excluded consent, so it goes to items from staff. So staff have a report?
So I'll start out, good evening, commissioners. I'll start out with the update on services provided in response to COVID-19. As you are aware, the rental assistance programs overseen by the Alliance for Housing and Healing and NCJWLA continue. And to date, those two agencies have received 2,213 requests for rental assistance. Of those, 1,909 have been approved, and the total amount of funding provided is $1,575,335. The breakdown between the agencies is the Alliance has assisted 104 unduplicated community members. They have provided 316 grants for a total of $248,375. And NCJW has assisted 479 community members. They have provided 1,593 grants, and they have distributed $1,326,959. So those programs continue. As you are aware, we brought on eviction prevention and defense services through BATSETIC, and they have, since the onset of that program, they have opened 190 cases. Of those, 127 have been resolved. So that's the update on COVID-19. I had a few other announcements. I first wanted to follow up, it came up before the meeting. We did follow up, Commissioner Freiberg, on your question about the mailing and the mailing of the trilingual brochure. We did citywide mailing. You had a question about, did it get to all of the apartment managers? So I called up the service and we kind of reviewed who's included in that mailing. It is restricted to West Hollywood addresses. So any manager, any on-site manager that has their own address, their own unit, would receive that brochure. Any landlord whose landlord or representative agency who is located within the city would receive that brochure. So I continued that discussion. I think when you brought that up, we also had Jonathan Hollab, who's the manager of rent stabilization. And I talked to him after that, because as we know, with some of the larger developments, the landlord and potentially the manager may live outside of the city. And to your point, wanting to be sure that all of the landlords and the managers have that information for their tenants, I asked him about their mailings for rent stabilization. And they do include landlords and or the representative managers who are located outside of the city. So moving forward, I think your suggestion is we need to get it to those landlords as well, those businesses as well. We had, as we enter this third year of this contract cycle, we asked the agencies if they had any changes to the information that's in the brochure. We had, to date, only JFS Comprehensive Services had a change, but we will be updating that brochure, and we have the ability to add those addresses for the landlords located outside of the city into our social services mailing, and we will be sure to do that. So I just wanted to make sure that we had followed up. And if there's any further, clarification, if I want to make sure that I understood your, not request, but your clarification And it's certainly, well noted that we do want to get that information to all of the, as many of the landlords as possible, not just the ones located in West Hollywood.
Yeah, I think one of my concerns was if you send something to apartment manager's home, like if they live let's say they live in my building, it's very different from sending it to the office to where they can just throw it on their desk and they see it there, because if they're at home, they may be like, this has nothing to do with me at home. That was a concern for me. I'm not saying they're definitely going to do that. Oh, my computer is making noise. But I just feel like it's a better strategy to send it to their actual job, the office in the building, and not their home where they're just going to throw it out, with the rest of the junk mail. Not saying that they're going to do that, but
Right.
Not accusing anybody, but I just think it's a better idea to send their work stuff to their work. It's more of a chance of them looking at it or keeping it on their desk.
And point well taken. And so the folks who, just to reiterate, the folks who do have their offices located in West Hollywood received it, but we will bring on those additional agencies, landlords who are located outside of the city for the next mailing. So just wanted to follow up with you.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I wanted to for those who don't know, I wanted to officially welcome to the social services team, Dee. Dee has accepted the offer to fill the role of the social services specialist, that position was last filled by Corey Roskin. So that was a year and a half ago already since Corey retired. And we have, done our best to keep, all the many, varied duties that Corey was so fantastic at, filling. But now we have Dee. So anyway, we just wanted to officially welcome her. She's filling in for Ginny tonight, so she won't always be our secretary, but we are so excited to have her in that position. So welcome, Dee. And that's a quick segue for, we've already said, okay, Dee, go. So Dee is assisting with this year's World AIDS Day programming. You will be receiving, we wanted to wait until tonight till the election was official, but you will be receiving invitation for the program, which is the annual World AIDS Day program, the Paul Andrew Stark Warrior Awards. We would love for you all to participate in providing giving out the awards and recognitions this year along with council. So Dee will be reaching out to you and giving you the details on that. So anyway, just wanted to welcome Dee. You're going to have a staff report coming in December on the city's syringe services program, which is currently provided through Being Alive. You'll get a full update on that next month. And I wanted to mention, we've been in discussions with the DHSP, so the Department of HIV and STD programming, specifically about how we can continue to support syringe services programs. And Being Alive is happy to announce that they have, received additional funding from the county they have been doing that program every other Saturday, and they've received additional funding, and they will begin to provide that program on a weekly basis. So more to come, but I just wanted to let you know that that's on your agenda next month, and it was great news for Being Alive. And I think, Leslie, no announcements? Dee? Any friend? All right. I think that's items from staff for tonight. Thank you.
Very, very exciting. Dee, do we have any public comment this moment?
No, it's just us.
It's just us. Excellent. All right, thank you. Items from the commissioners. And so I don't know, I can start with the raised hand, and I bet anybody in here can guess who that might be. It is Adam Darvish. Mr. Darvish.
Yes, I can't wait to make a statement for you, Chair Davis, for the great job that you've done, the service that you have provided. I didn't know how many years you've served, and I found that out today. So it's really, I appreciate you as a resident in the city that didn't know you up to last year before I was killed and got involved, and got to know all of you, and especially the ones that served last year that had to leave the commission. I was actually calling in and listening, but wanted to thank you and appreciate you for what you've done, and congratulate the two upcoming, our new chair and new vice chair have also been, I believe, serving for many years. And I know the choices are tough. You look at the screen and, Commissioner Byers, Commissioner Freiberg, and Patrick, just all of you, just so great that to listen to and get ideas from. So thank you so much, Chair Davis. We'll miss you, and hopefully somebody else, that's Chair Palmer, would take your seat and give me a hard time for raising hand first.
I do get to stay on the commission though, by the way. I'll be in the audience, and my hand is usually trying to be first.
Yeah, I'll just miss the way you give me a hard time. So
Stephen is much kinder. Stephen is much kinder than I am.
But I also wanted to mention that November is the awareness month for pancreatic cancer. I've lost some friends in healthcare, from leaders, from CEOs to doctors, to this awful disease that just appears in your life without any trigger that, by the time it's too late and you're given 3, 4 months or 6 months. So this is the awareness month with the color purple. Just wanted for us to recognize that, and last but not least, for congratulating Dee for joining the social service team. Such a full of energy and excitement that we all appreciate you, Dee, for being in our commission, I think for 2 times now, and Jenny was off last time. And never forget your smile and positive attitude and the way you help all of us, keep us on track. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Darvish. Commissioner Meltzer.
First, bravo, Stephen, Chair Davis, for all of your wonderful work during this virtual time that we're in. Thank you, everybody, for voting for me and believing in me. I am excited about working with Vice Chair Palmieri. And I do have just a couple of things. One is in terms of World AIDS Day, one of the events I saw on the list was December 3rd at the Book Soup event with Stephen Rains, who will be talking about A Quilt for David. Stephen is West Hollywood's very first poet laureate. And so this is very exciting, and I hope everybody attends that event. He's absolutely wonderful. And I just have one more thing, which I just need to bring it up. And David, perhaps you and I can talk about this at some point. The language in the surveys, it just in one place says serving and supporting the most vulnerable members of our society, including community members who were LGBTQ, older adults, HIV positive, and low income. I'm an older adult and I don't consider myself a vulnerable member of our society. Everybody who is LGBT is not a vulnerable member of society. I really think that we need to look into that and just look at the language a little bit more. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And forgive me, Commissioner Meltzer, what are you reading from?
This was, I believe it was in the survey. In
Erin's report.
Okay, great.
Yeah, the needs assessment.
We'd be happy to have that conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
No second thoughts about voting now. Let's see. Any other commissioner have any comments, or Commissioner Sandrick?
Just a quick thank you, Chair Davis. You always step in and step up through your history with the commission, but obviously this term has been a lot in providing service, pivoting, and adapting to new ways to hold our meetings virtually. So we all really do appreciate the the massive effort you made, and congratulations to the new chair and chairwoman of the commission, vice chairwoman.
Thank you. Patrick, I thought Commissioner Palmieri.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for voting. I really appreciate it. I look forward to working with Barbara. If I can remember, and I trust me, my memory is not what it used to be. I think Barbara and I did a funding cycle 8 years ago, going into 9. Is that right, David?
We did, and we lived to tell about it.
Yeah, we did.
That is correct.
Those
The
were during our-
2016 through 19 contract cycle.
Yeah. Stephen, I want to thank you. This was a rough year, and it would be for anybody that had to run these meetings. And I'm glad that I got to learn off of you, because I don't know that I would have been as patient. Congratulations, Dee. I just look so forward to working with you. David, I had a question, and I hope you can answer this. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I don't know what the legality is, but 190 evictions were settled. Is that what you said?
190 cases open, and of those, I think it was 170 resolutions.
So are the resolutions either they are evicted or are they definitely not evicted? Or
Not
we don't
evicted.
have that in, not evicted?
Not
That's
evicted.
great. That's
And
great.
I can get more detail, and we do want to bring Beth Sedek to the commission. We've got a lot coming up on your December and January. You know, we've got year-end report coming in December, along with some other kind of hefty items. But I would like to bring them to give you a sense of kind of the various cases that have come their way. So, but in the meantime, I'll get a little bit more detail to provide at the next meeting under items from staff, and then have maybe Beth Sedek come in either January or February.
And I just want to let everyone know that Boom is in full force. It's going to be a production unlike, I think, anything that's been online. We are not using, it's not a Zoom meeting. We have the studio, or the set studio will be at the West Hollywood Recovery Center. Satellites will be at the sober houses, so that we will have actually folks that could not or would not be able to be at Boom included in Boom. We also are putting together 350 boom boxes with some generous donations from some folks that people can pick up at different locations, given out by our volunteers, that they can open during Boom. We'll say open prize number 1, number 2, number 3, so that they feel like there is some type of connection. It's rough to say, well, I'm going to watch, you know, our production on New Year's Eve, but maybe there will be some. We didn't know how many folks would actually show up to the first Boom, and it was enormously successful. So I'm hoping the same with this. I was at a meeting at Being Alive for about an hour and a half, and they have some very interesting harm reduction programs coming up, and I believe that they'll be given, I think they're going to be giving a presentation to us in December. Is that correct, David?
That is correct.
I have one of the kits here, and it's you know, it's one of those things where as we progress in certain things, harm reduction becomes more and more important, and I'm actually looking very much forward to that. And other than that, oh, I know, please go to aidswatch.org, aidswatch.org, and you can put in the name of any of the loved ones that you have lost, friends, ones, whoever, and they will be shown on the screen for a 24-hour period. I think everybody gets 3 seconds, 4 seconds, whatever, but there have been years that I've actually tuned in at the very moment where someone that I cared about was on the screen, and it made me feel really good. And I actually, my aunt was on the library bill when we were projecting it onto the library, if you remember, a while back. And when I walked by with Councilmember D'Amico, my aunt her name was up, and it made me feel really good. So these are this is something that, you know, it's been going on for a while. I believe it's one of the most important living works of art that we have, and please participate in it. I think it's just a wonderful thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Palmieri. Commissioner Byers.
Thanks a lot, Chair Davis. I'm going to start with you. I just am so grateful for your leadership. This new commissioner had a lot of learning to do, and you made the space really inclusive, and you were never slow to slow down. You were always really quick to notice that there was a moment and an opportunity to be more inclusive in this space. And I just really appreciate you for that leadership, and look forward to Vice Chair Palmieri and Commissioner Meltzer taking the reins through this funding cycle. It's good to know you've got experience doing it. Looking to you for that leadership and guidance. I also just want to welcome Dee. Really excited to know you through this space, and see you be a part of this room with us. I wanted to just shout out, I participated in both Councilmember Erickson's Saturdays at Plummer Park and the Sips with Seppi event. And it's been a whirlwind year for these two new council members. And this is a really stellar opportunity for community members who haven't gotten chances to get to know those two, to go out and meet them. They host these events every month, so look forward to finding those on their calendars in the coming months. It was a really also great way to get to know and connect with other members of the community and just hear about the concerns. And I heard a number of questions around homelessness, around what we're doing to continue to meet people's needs through COVID, and was really excited to be able to share information with people in those spaces. So encourage folks to attend those. And I also just wanted to note that I've been listening in and participating in the Public Safety Commission meetings, because there's been some really interesting discussions going on about the root causes to many of the issues that have been occurring in community, and the issues that public safety specifically addresses, sort of in the framework of reimagining what it means to address public safety. And I think so much about the work of this commission and those conversations and what it means to establish and support systems of care. And I just, as those conversations continue to unfold, just really appreciate the folks in this room and the people who are thinking about what it means to address the gaps, to make sure our services can reach more people. Because I personally believe that that is the ways that we address public safety in this community, is by meeting people's needs. So thanks for the time.
Thank you, Commissioner Byers. Commissioner Freiberg.
Hello. Hey, David, do you think what you had read off, there were a lot of stats and everything going on. Do you think you could copy and paste that into an email? Because I think I missed a couple important things. You were pretty quick on the draw.
Sure.
I think I didn't have my pen ready. So,
So the update on rental assistance and the eviction prevention.
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
You know, just
I will
like a
do that.
copy and paste.
But yeah, I'll get it to Dee and have her send it out tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. And Dee, it's great to have you. Congratulations, and we're lucky to have you, I think. You always have such a great smile, so I'm like, she's amazing, you know. But so welcome, you know. I'm still pretty new. And I want to congratulate the new chair, Commissioner Meltzer, and Commissioner Palmieri, and the new vice chair, Commissioner Meltzer, and Chair Davis. You've been here for like 100 years, and I'm so glad to have, 85, 90 years, but I'm so glad that we have your guidance on here. You've been so kind and inclusive, and it was just, you were so welcoming. So I'm so thankful for that. And congratulations again on your retirement. We'll be taking very good care of you on this board, on this commission, and making sure you have all your needs for retirement. And that's it. I want to thank everyone for their presentations, and happy Thanksgiving already, almost, to everyone. That's it.
All right. And I just want to thank all of you for being such excellent commissioners and staff, et cetera. It's not, for me, this was a very difficult task. I'm much more in an in-person sort of person. And so this has been a learning experience, which wasn't bad for me. Something I wish I didn't have to have learned, but I'm glad I did. And I'm hoping that Jimmy will not necessarily have an entire year on Zoom as chair. I'm hoping that we should be able to open up again. And just for everyone's curiosity and actually mine, I did look up, and I was actually appointed on this day, the 9th of November, in 1993. So I've been here 28 years, which is kind of amazing. I'm older than I think Francisco is. So I've been aging in place all along. And then the city came up with an interesting, initiative to follow that. So I want to thank everyone. It's not a hard job, but it's not an easy job. and it's done differently by everyone. And Jimmy is correct. He is not as nice as I am. So good luck in the future. And with that, and if there's no other comment, I want to thank everyone and have a good night. And I want to thank David especially for a nice short agenda for my last meeting. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
everyone have a
everybody.
lovely Thanksgiving
Have a great night,
Take care.
everybody.
and good night.